It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About It's all about humanity. About It's all about humanity. It's all about humanity. About It's all about humanity. About It's all about humanity.
Good morning, model citizens. Welcome to Hangout with Humanity today, this morning. I don't know what it is, but we're going to have a good time. A little bit differently this morning. I actually have a guest who's out in his caboose in the woods, and we'll learn a little bit about his caboose and where that caboose is. So I think that should be a lot of fun. As people see, I'm not wearing my usual shirt. I'm wearing my Be Kind and Play with Trains shirt because it's all about being kind today. This is from Jimmy at DIY and Digital. It's one of the shirts that is on his store. Let's take a look, see who's joining us this morning in alphabetical order, just because that's how I roll. We've got Almar joining us. Chicago South Shore and South Dokie is here as well. Colin Wykes in the house. And Dad Cooks, just confirm for me. I believe your first name is Eric. I just want to make sure I'm actually associating the correct name with the correct person. We've got James from Boulder Creek Yard checking in as well. Drew Dudes Model Trains is here. Jason Galton from up in Canada is here. Jerry Satterali, who is my woodworking expert. Ian from Lehigh River Subdivision waiting over 40 minutes for his lineman to come back after a 10-minute break. We've got Lynn McCurdy from out in the desert, and Nisi J is here as well. Norm Miller coming in from the Mid-South, or Upper South, I don't know. Welcome, Norm. North County Trains, Harrison is here as well. We got Roy Eltham in the house. Shays N-Scale is joining us. Steve Childers is here as well. We've got Steve 87 PSAP in the house. Let's see, Bernard C joining us as well. Really good to see everybody here this morning, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I was going to give Nisi J a hard time because she thought she was first, but I was going to let her know that Mark M&M Rails was actually here last night, checking in 13 hours before the stream even started. So that was a lot of fun. Nisi saying YouTube not working for me. I'm showing excellent connection over here. I wonder if you can let us know a little bit more, Nisi, what's not working, and hopefully somebody in the chat will be able to help us all out. But Anthony Dodge, the Model Train Outsider, slipping in as well. Without further ado, I do have a couple people in the basement, so let's bring up one of our usuals, and then I will introduce our special guest. But we have Mr. Steve Childers in the house. How you
Hey,
doing, Steve?
great. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic. Steve 87 says, looks like Heath forgot to clean his face this morning. It's actually my neck threw up is what happened. So this is what happens with that. Nisi says I had to refresh. It started the countdown for your show. You may need to hit the live button, Nisi. If you hover over the YouTube window, you should be able to hit live, and it should bring you right back. Of course, if she's watching the 10-minute countdown now, she's not gonna hear me suggest to click live until 10 minutes anyway. we'll, we'll get there. Andy Ambrose joining us as well, but let's get to the man of the hour. Or we'll pretend for now. And Steve, I am gonna mute you because I hear your trains in the background. But
Yeah, I can
so
mute
if you
the
want to
trains.
talk, just
I'll mute the
unmute
trains.
yourself. Okay. So the guest today is somebody I met, I think about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, during an NMRAX presentation. We learned that we actually live pretty close to each other in New York City. And we just started talking and chatting, and I learned that he actually has a Caboose in the Woods. And I was kind of like, what? Like, I want a caboose. And he said he was gonna be up there this week and doing a little work on it. So I thought it'd be really great to get him on here. He doesn't have much of a YouTube channel, but if you subscribe to his channel, I'm hoping that at some point he will do more stuff on his YouTube channel, and we'll we'll
That's the
get
goal.
him going. We'll get him
Yeah.
going eventually. But it's do you prefer Andy or Andrew, or it doesn't matter?
Andy.
And so this is Andy a step. So Andy, just to start before we get into the caboose a little bit, you're actually a professional builder, as well as a model train builder. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your your modeling history and your train history a little bit.
Well, let's see. I started model trains when I was a middle school. 1988, I got a Bachmann HO scale set for Christmas, and I built the layout 4x8 in the basement, and then I took a break for college, and while I was in grad school in San Diego, I started doing models again. And my wife, her family has this house up in the Adirondacks, and started researching the house because it's an odd shaped house, and then the ground is really strange. And it turns out it was a lumber company office for an Adirondack logging company, built around 1900. And I found that there's a kit of the specific caboose that this logging company had, and I bought the kit. This is the one I bought, and I took measurements from the kit, and I blew it all up to full scale. And well, I guess you asked initially what my building background is, and I used to work in theater as a props builder, and so I decided blowing it up to full scale. We had a neighbor who had one of these bandsaws on a trailer, and he cut the framing lumber for us. And then over 6 or 7 years, summers, I built the caboose with the help of my father-in-law. And this was started about 15 years ago, and I do work on it every summer a little bit, here and there. I'm not quite done. This year I'm going to add some handrails. So it's modeling, but modeling in 1-to-1 scale.
So when you started this caboose, uh, were you doing your train modeling as well, or had you not started that back up again since your childhood?
I hadn't. I just was buying magazines and armchair modeling, and since building this, I've gone into 3-rail O scale, and now I'm in 2-rail O scale. So that's where I am.
Harrison from North Country Train says, "Wait, you're in the Adirondacks? I'm awake now." He lives up on the edge of the Adirondacks. So yeah.
Yes, I'm far northwestern Adirondacks. Have to From New York City. I have to travel through most of it and
Mm.
get almost to Watertown and Potsdam area. Just, yeah, as far northwest as you can go in the Adirondacks.
The McCurdy saying usually modelers take measurements of full size and downsize them. This is a case of taking a model and blowing it up to full size.
Yeah. After I built this, I learned that the real full scale one actually still exists. So it's number 41 still exists. It's in someone's collection up in Vermont. I'm not sure what the condition it is in now. Originally, there were 4 of them, and they were built in 1880s, 1890s era in Pennsylvania, and they came with the logging company when they moved up here. I actually have a picture of the.
And it looks like we lost him. He'll be back in a second, I'm sure. Probably just hit the wrong button. He is up in an area where all he has is cell phone service because the caboose is too far from his main house for Wi-Fi. So apologize if he
I'm
cuts
back.
in and out, but he'll keep coming back.
Let's see. Here we go. Trying to share the other side of the camera. Sorry about that. This is the original caboose. And so I numbered mine one after that. And here's the inside of it. And it goes up. And there's cupola's area. Let's see. This is a map of the area. I actually built the caboose on the service track for the sawmill. So our caboose is sitting here, and all of these were areas that they were drying lumber. And this is the sawmill. It was the largest sawmill on the East Coast. It's a double bandsaw. You have engine house and log pond off of a bigger pond.
That is way cool. I want one.
Yeah,
Build
I know exactly, right? Isn't that incredible?
So here's outside. So mine's number 75. I got the marker lights as replicas too. This one's green. I need to get a replacement globe for it.
Now, somebody was commenting that this doesn't look like a kind of a traditional caboose or whatever. What was this actually used for back in the day?
It was used as a kind of an office for the train. So the conductor had a desk in it, and there was a stove. Right along here is where the sawmill started. Right in there, and then there were all these concrete platforms for the the drying area, and the caboose is sitting on the track, so it's actually sitting on some ties. So the line went this way, and then off in this area was the main track, and right from here, that's our office. Right from here, you could catch a train. It would connect you to the New York Central Adirondack Division, and you could ride all the way back to New York City.
People are saying it's called a bobber caboose. It would have two
Yeah,
fixed axles.
it's a bobber caboose. This particular one, it may have been built with the four wheels. I haven't gotten to the wheels yet, but here's the handrails I'm going to add probably this week. The handrails are off of a New York Central heavyweight commuter car that was abandoned up here, and the owner said I could have the handrails. So so the goal is to put them on there and there. The car is short. It's less than 20 feet long. It's about 16 feet long. And then like I say, originally it was probably a four-wheel bobber caboose, and then they put trucks on it, so it had eight wheels.
Oh, are you gonna try and put it up on wheels at some point, or is?
If I can find wheels.
Oh, you are. Oh, wow.
If I can find wheels, and I'm actually gonna, I have some track or some rail right in here. Bunch of parts. I find pieces everywhere. It's kind of my side hobby is hunting with metal detector up here. And
What kind of stuff have you found with the metal detector?
I've found some interesting things. I found I don't have it up here, so sadly I can't share it. But I have a builder's plate for a steam shovel, a Marion steam shovel, from when they originally built the railroad here. I have pictures of the Marion, but the builder's plate was a neat find. I found it right when I got the metal detector. I just took it right outside the door of the caboose, and it was right there. They must have scrapped it right here on this track.
That's so cool. And what is your intention with the caboose? Like, are you gonna put a layout in it? Is that the goal, or is it more just a?
Well, when I built it, when I started building, my son was 1, and he's 16 now, and he's been using it as a playhouse, and my girls are using it as a playhouse, and my wife was using it to write her dissertation paper. So it's gotten a lot of use. It's kind of office space and play space. Now my nephew's 1, and he just learned about it today.
Oh, that's so exciting. And are there, besides those grab rails that are outside, are there any other original parts that you have?
I have some brake wheels off of a, I think it's a Great Northern hopper, and I'll put those on. Eventually, I'll have it looking like the original. See how close I can get.
And I noticed that model was still in the box. Are you gonna build up that model kit at some point, or?
I have 5 of them.
Oh, oh, I didn't. Okay.
So that one was just the original one that I bought, and I keep, if I find them for a good price on eBay, I'll get them. But I don't think I need more than 5, because it's the 4 originals and then mine. So eventually I'll have the full fleet.
So you're a little bit of a collector, as we would say.
A little bit. But I mean, if other people weren't collectors, we wouldn't still have this stuff. So.
Oh, so true. That's so true. Hey, Frank, welcome to the party.
Thank you for having me. That's so-called caboose like that.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? I would joke around saying like I would love to have a shed at some point in the backyard as the train room. And I
Yeah.
would say like how cool would it be to have like an old like Pullman passenger car or some sort of, original style piece of equipment as kind of the backyard shed. So
The,
when
the pro, how did, I wasn't online for it. Did you have to move that caboose?
I built it.
Oh, you built it.
Yeah.
I wasn't online for that part. Because I often thought about moving a train car, a smaller one like a caboose, to my yard, but to moving it, how would you get it there?
It's
they have
it's uh
companies that do it.
Yeah,
it's
I
quite
could
expensive, is what I hear.
I could probably get this caboose that's sitting up behind there's a thrift store up in the West End part of Pittsburgh, and there's a caboose sitting off to the side. It's just the paint's all rusted and everything off because I guess the building used to be part of the railroad.
Hmm.
It's just sitting there. I could probably get it for the scrap price, but how would I get it here?
Right. I think moving is probably the most expensive part. And
Yeah,
caboose, they tend to be taller. I know,
yeah.
like a modern steel caboose, when they move them, they actually turn them on the side.
Oh,
So
really?
it will fit under bridges and overpasses and
Because
electrical lines and everything like
because of
that.
the cupola and stuff. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Unless you
Yes.
get a bay, if you're lucky enough to get a bay window one.
So Frank, the part you missed is that he actually the shipping he paid was actually for the model
Wow.
because he has a model kit that he took the plans out of
Yeah.
Oh,
and
and then build it from the plans.
So,
Crazy.
so
yeah.
he built opposite. Instead of building a model from the one-to-one, he built the one-to-one from the model.
He reversed 187. I ain't gonna say he reversed and scaled it.
Yeah. I think his kit was actually like HO scale-ish.
There's
Yeah,
O scale. It's just
Oh, it's O
O
scale.
scale's a little easier for a scratch builder because just you can use a regular ruler and
yeah.
just a quarter inch is a foot. This is the original caboose that I caught. I actually took this picture to figure out what the spacing of the siding was.
Oh, so that one actually has the trucks on it as well. Like people were
Yeah,
saying
you
it
can
used
you
to
can
just
see
have two
the
axles. This
trucks.
one has the trucks, yeah.
Yeah, it was neat. This company made their own trucks, so the structural part that connected the two, they're kind of arch bar trucks, but the structural part is a solid piece of wood. So they were
Ah,
using the least amount of metal that they could to make to make it because the wood was easy to get here.
yeah. They they could just chop the wood down.
Right.
Yeah.
Adam Cruz says he got to watch them move the Rio Grande caboose a couple years back to in front of Caboose Hobby here in Denver. But now that they're closed, we're waiting to see where the caboose moves again.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I do know there are clubs in the U.S. of people that like own a Pullman passenger car, and they keep them on like sidings all around the country, and like once or twice a year, they'll get together and hire. I don't know how it works, but they hire a locomotive or something, and they pull them around the country. So,
Hmm.
um,
Well, if you remember before from the live stream that you did, Heath, I went down to the yard, local yard here, well, an old yard, but they were tearing apart that old Berkshire. It was broken two pieces. I was trying to show you guys through the fence.
yeah.
I would love to have just the drive wheels because the drive is all still in one condition, one piece down there. They took the boiler and the cab and all that off and scrapped it already. I'd love to have the drive wheels and make it like a raised planter box.
So did you, because of the caboose and because of getting this kit in O scale, is that what kind of got you into then the O scale modeling? And then that's really cool.
That is exactly the way that it went. It was um, I got this kit and realized how easy it was to scale it up, and then I thought, oh well, if I go the other way. So now I'm scratch building a lot in O scale because it's easy. Like if I can find a drawing, I can make the piece. It's
How,
easy.
how I'm curious, how big is that caboose inside?
Uh, it is the whole frame that runs underneath it is just over 16 feet,
And you have about 8 foot wide inside?
8 feet wide inside,
Mm-hmm.
and then
About half the size of your apartment, Heath.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, that would be it'd be a perfect extra space. I mean, you joke, Frank, but the other thing you missed is Andy and I actually live near each other in New York City, which is
Uh-huh.
kind of how we initially met as well. So we commiserate quite often over the amount of space that we have to model in and kind of what that takes. So yeah, I know, Andy, if you want to talk about your layout in your apartment that
oh,
you do have.
my apartment layout is quite small. It sits up on the top of my bookshelf. I have
Hmm.
about 9 foot ceilings in the apartment, and it's the whole piece is about 12 feet long, and about a foot wide, and it's O scale.
Jeez.
So small, but I don't need to be have a huge layout. I mainly like making the cars more than running the trains. But switching layout is about what I'm interested in. I am a member of the New York Society of Model Engineers in Carlstadt, New Jersey, and I
And
can take the bus
that's the
from Port
New York
Authority.
City, the New York City Modeling Club that is currently based in New Jersey.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
crazy. That's how you guys do that up there, though.
Yeah,
yes. It,
I
it
mean,
was
call yourself the New York Jets and you're over in New Jersey, you know.
right. Originally, they were based in Times Square, and I, Jacob Astor was one of the original members, so he let them use the basement of the Times building
Hmm.
um, as their original club layout, and they had a branch that was part of the founding of the boat basin in Central Park, where they sail the model sailboats, and eventually they moved to New Jersey for a bigger space.
it's so incredible. And yeah, and that club has they have two rail O scale and they have HO scale. They're correct. Yeah,
Yes,
I
Yeah,
went there.
if I
They
ever got back into O scale, it'd be definitely two rail. I can't
yes.
stand that looking at that third rail.
Unless you're modeling a subway.
It's nice for reverse loops and no special wiring, but that's
True.
about it.
I do like though that I mean 3 rail O scale has come a long way where they have track that looks a little bit more prototypical. You know,
Why? Because they added ties and roadbed.
well, and they've sort of come up with ways to kind of minimize that center track. It's not the old, O27 tubular track.
Yeah,
It definitely looks different, but
I think the O27 tubular track still has its place. It still looks good underneath the tree.
Hmm.
oh yeah, and I have a small collection of O scale, and there's just something fun about like that
Nostalgia.
size trains, and it's easy and it's simple and it's uh, it's what I started with as a kid, so
Mhm.
it's definitely has
So,
an appeal historically.
so I had a little problem on my end, Heath. We went away for a few days, and my family was coming over taking care of the animal, but somebody did not take care of the cat box,
Uh-oh.
and my cat decided to climb up on my layout and use the center of the wilderness as the litter box, and then proceed to scratch out all kind of trees to cover up his mess. Oh, I got a big
Oh.
mess to clean up in there, and I'm thinking I just have to tear it down just to get rid of the smell now.
Hmm.
Or at least that section. Yeah,
It's
it's a
dead
good
center.
opportunity to good opportunity to update that part of the layout.
Oh my
Um,
God! I come back home and everything was fine until I went into the train room and almost gagged.
Uh,
I bet that the smell is atrocious.
Talk about a catzilla.
yeah. One of the other things I really like about Andy that I think's neat is, as you can tell, like he's really into the history of things.
Yeah.
Um, but I bought this book kind of because I saw him have it. But it's fun. We'll talk sometimes about like various corners of the city where he's done all this research on the trains. And I guess like, have you always been a historian, or you mostly did it come through the rail stuff, or like
I'm
how'd
always
you?
I've always been interested in the idea that something was there before, and
Yeah.
figuring out what that was. Um, like the idea of the future is just as interesting as the past. Um, and you're in a moment, and now that moment's gone. It used to be the past, and now it's something that you can think about. And I guess it is. Uh, we still have a noon whistle here, so that's the
Okay.
noon whistle to tell everybody to take your lunch break.
Wow.
So is there still a mill in the area that's still operating?
No, it's tradition. Um, they there's even a street in this town that's called Pennsylvania Avenue
Hmm.
because that's where all of the company came from Pennsylvania. So they brought the name with them, and they actually brought all of the buildings with them. When they came here from Pennsylvania, they took the buildings of the old mill town there apart, and they brought it with them.
Hmm.
So it is kind of neat to like look in old buildings, like when they're for sale around here. You can see where they uh, brought things from other places. And in the attic here, we've found things that they brought from Pennsylvania. I found um, there was a shelf in the attic that's made of a piece of wood that was actually a sign that said, "Watch out for logging teams next mile and a half." And
Hmm.
because in the wintertime they would use horses to pull the logs through the woods on ice roads.
Yeah, I do. I
So
think history is really interesting, and I especially think being in this area where things like Pennsylvania Station was torn down, and things like how there used to be rails just going down the street, and then they built the High Line, and then even the High Line has gone away, and there's just multiple layers, both up and down, in the city
And
of
it,
railroads.
yeah, it's crazy. The further, well, it's true. It's not crazy. It's true. The further east you go in this country, the older things get.
Yeah,
So,
it's funny you say that the way you said that too, because when you grow up on the East Coast, you think of the country expanding west,
yeah,
but then when you live in the West, there's just kind of uh, a different concept of the beginning, I guess, or the history
there's
of
really
things.
not much. There's really not much out west over 100 years old.
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
in San Diego, when we were there, the missions are from the 1700s.
Well, yeah, because you had people coming to that shore too, as well,
Yeah,
and the Mexicans coming up. But I'm talking about like dead center of this country, maybe to Colorado. There ain't much there older than 100 years old. Some
yeah,
old farm, maybe some old ranches or stuff, but none of the towns.
right.
None of the big cities are that old.
Yeah, this area of the Adirondacks was really skipped over uh, when the people were going west. Um, the soil is so bad here that you can't really grow anything. So even native people, they just used it as a hunting area. They
Yeah,
weren't staying for any length of time. Um, it wasn't until the turn of the 20th century that anyone stayed here, really. Um, Frederick Remington came through, and people came through for kind of vacations, but no one was staying here.
I love history too, man. In fact, up until about 6 years ago, was it? About 6 years ago, Mr. Shramko, my U.S. history teacher in high school, we remained friends all this time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I loved. He turned me on to history He actually taught it in the junior high as well, and but he was the main guy for U.S. history and any of the history classes up in the high school. And
Hmm.
he
Tim
used
is
to say that was
saying
one class I aced.
many of the western cities are well over 100 years old. The gold rush was 1848 to 1850.
On the West Coast.
Right, not in the middle, I guess. Yeah, yeah. The Adirondacks are kind of the Rockies of the East, right? And then,
Yeah.
so are you on the east side of the Adirondacks then, or the west side of the Adirondacks?
West side.
Okay.
It's all a matter of perspective because, Illinois became, which is center of the country, became a state in 1818, right? It had settlers dating back into the mid 1700s. Okay.
Yeah.
So I understand the fact that, yes, the country expanded westward. All right. And yes, you can take the East
But
Coast back in the 1500s easy. Um,
it's just I was just saying that the east side is way older than the west side.
But even so, I mean, you walk down New York City streets and you're constantly seeing buildings that were built in the last 50 years that they tore down some, gorgeous old buildings.
Yeah.
Even the building that I'm in right now was built in 1927 or something. I think it was either finished or started. And they have pictures of this corner before then. And there was like this huge country mansion on this
Wow.
corner before this was built.
Yeah.
We don't,
Where I live, it was all big farmland. My house was built in 1915, and
yeah, I mean,
and
we don't save stuff very well here in this country. I feel like if you go over to where Andy lives, sorry, not this Andy, Andy Ambrose,
yeah,
who's in the chat from the UK. You go over to the UK and they make a real effort to save things. And here in the US, it's like we had to create the Landmark Society after they tore down Pennsylvania Station just to save Grand Central Station.
yeah,
And even Grand Central Station is now surrounded by tall buildings, so you don't get the lighting or the
it looks really out of place now.
yeah. There's a different sort of magistry. The word that word's popping into my head, but it feels like it doesn't fit in the sentence. But
They
there's a
just
certain
tore, they just tore a historical building about a mile from my house that supposedly George Washington stayed in. It's along the Chartier Street there, but it had a hotel, a jail, a post office, and a saloon all in the same building. It was slowly falling back over the hillside, so they finally tore it down.
yeah. Um, this is a good point too that Tim says. Remember, the Spanish and French were both in the West before the rest of us was here.
Yeah, they were.
So
And
we think about modern society as what we envision it, but there were people here that, well, we
Yeah,
can get into what we did to them, but yeah, I mean it's
yeah,
a whole.
and there was towns through the center, but usually they were along the main trails going west.
I think a big group that people forget about out west, north of San Francisco, is the Russian River, and Fort Ross was they were Russians in Washington State and California and Oregon.
Lynn McCurdy was just posting about that,
Yeah,
about the Russian settlements going way back. So that's pretty crazy.
yeah, yeah. The thing about this area where this caboose is, the they stopped logging here right after World War II, and everything was just, it's like they walked away. I've found piles of shovel heads. The handles are gone, but the shovel heads are just stacked on top of each other like someone walked away. The building is gone that they were in, but the shovels are there. I can find like a pile of shingles, but um, there's nothing that came after logging, and there was nothing before. So it's a funny little like window in a timeline, and the things that were left are still there or gone.
Grant, did you totally blanked what I was gonna say. I saw Frank drop out and then I got confused. Um, Andy's asking if the Indian tribes originate from Russia. Boy, there's a question I have no idea the answer to.
I don't I don't know. I know they were trading. The Fort Ross was established as a trading post, kind of north of San Francisco, Sonoma County, the part that's the wine area now, and the redwoods, around where they filmed The Birds, where Alfred Hitchcock filmed The Birds. It's really close to Bodega Bay, Fort Ross, the Russian River. Um,
I
they've
just remembered what I was going to ask you. How big was the town you're in its heyday compared to kind of where it is now?
um, Most of the buildings are still here.
And I guess I mean big as in population a little bit as well.
Population, I'm not exactly sure. I think that there were 40 people working in the sawmill. Um, the railroad company had, they were a bit like model railroaders. They kind of collected engines. So they had 28 engines, and 13 of them were rod engines, which you don't think of as use in logging, but they were using shays and as well as rod engines. And they actually had a patent out for steam engine that geared steam engine that they designed themselves. So they had two of these like homemade steam engines. The the town, I mean, the population of the town was really people who just worked in the sawmill. Um, the people who worked in the woods, they had camps that they would move around. Um, it was only 16 miles from here to the Adirondack Division, and then there's a Y at the edge of town. You can still see in the land formation. From there, they call it the North Tram. That was over 100 miles long, but it would change to wherever they were logging. They would just pull up the track and move it somewhere else. If the logs ran out, they would take it with them.
Really pretty incredible. I'm some people are talking about all the different let's read a couple of these. Our Native Americans came from Asia thousands of years ago through what would now be Russia. Anthony Dodge saying the ancestors of Native Americans migrated from Russia, Mongolia, China. Before that, they were in India, and before that, Africa. Steve 87 PSAP theory is the Native Americans mostly relate back to Asian cultures, supposedly coming from far mother Russia across the Bering Sea. That's yeah, it's pretty wild. Thank you for Mr. Piktovich. Happy Friday. Yeah, happy Friday to everybody. Oh, and what I forgot to say at the beginning is happy second half of 2021. It's July 1st or it's July 2nd, I think now. So we've completed the first half of 2021 and we're heading on to the back ends. So I got a couple questions via text that I'm gonna read out. How far from the main house is the caboose? Do you use it as a nature watching area as well? What wildlife have you seen? And do you put out any bait or salt licks to attract wildlife?
No, it is probably 100 yards from the house. Um, the We've seen bears. Accidentally scared off a deer this morning. Um, just just by opening the door,
Yeah.
it was scared. You can actually see some of the ties here. This is another spur, and then the lake is over there.
I
I
think
don't
that's
know.
such a great view of the lake. I love how you're like, oh, and this is an interesting piece of history as well that I don't think you've explained yet, but like you're built way up above the lake, and the train tracks and everything were not on ground level; they were actually elevated as well.
Yes, they had this small, it's like a elevated deck that uh, they had carts on that they could move lumber around from the sawmill onto the drying areas. So they had these little carts that they could move around. Um, I don't know. This is
Oh,
our boathouse, but our boathouse was uh, a structure that was on that elevated track that when they took the elevated track out, they lowered this, and so it still exists
was
from
everything
the sun.
elevated so that they can like use gravity to kind of help with stuff, or was it like why didn't they just put it on the ground? Wouldn't it have been easier to build?
Well, the idea was that they were going to build a stack to dry the lumber, so they would move the wood around on these elevated platforms, and then they could stack them. Um, they could it's easier to lower them down than it is to lift them up on top of the stack. So if they had the stack at about 13 feet high, they could lower the drying wood down to someone to start the stack, and then once the stack was high enough, um, they could keep going. So they could have the stacks pretty high. I've I found one place
Oh, okay.
where there was a stack of lumber that someone just left. So a 60-year-old stack of lumber that's
Wow.
slowly rotting into the ground. Um, the This whole side of the lake was built up of logs, um, like slab lumber. So the nice thing about the water here is that it preserves the slab lumber, so you can actually see. I don't know if you can see underwater, but there's slabs like the very edge of a log that wouldn't be useful
Oh,
for any construction, so they just piled them, and so all of this land is actually just piles of slab lumber, and it's slowly become ground again. But if I dug with a shovel into here, I would just hit boards after boards. Um, that there was an area, a section of this lake that they cut off from the rest that they used as the log pond, and they actually had track running over it, and that whole area is just piles of wood. So when you take a canoe over to it, it goes down 30 feet, but it was a big enough pile of wood that they could actually run rail cars onto it, and the track was tilted so it would fall into the lumber area.
so
Um,
did you build the caboose with lumber milled from the area you're in now, or did you import the wood in?
yeah, my neighbor, he had some. Interestingly, in the woods, they actually cut the logs into lengths that they're going to use. It's like a standard size. Um, So if you're getting an 8 foot board or a 10 foot board, they actually cut that in the woods to 10 feet, and then mill the lumber from this 10 foot lengths. So when you see like a lumber truck on the highway, they're already pre-cut into the length of board that they're going to be eventually milled into. So it's hard to find. You have
Right.
to special order a board that's longer than 12 feet. Um, so I got these were 16 foot boards, but they were just accidentally cut that long in the woods. So yeah, I had them milled. Um, I drew out the plans, had them milled by my neighbor, and then a year later, after letting them
Fine.
dry out for a year, I started building the caboose from the framing lumber.
So did you have to then, you know, you, I mean, after it dried, then you had to like join it and plane it and all that kind of stuff to make it actual usable and stuff. Did you do that yourself, or did they do that all at the mill for you?
Well, it was. I just had it milled into rough lumber, like a when you get a 2x4 board at Home Depot, it's milled to smaller than actually 2 inches wide
Yeah.
or deep. But from a rough cut piece, it is actually a little bit more than 2 inches. So
Right.
I just used rough cut. Since it was the framing wood, not the not the not the sheathing. The sheathing I did have to buy separately.
And so the sheathing didn't come from that area necessarily.
Yeah, the sheathing came from a lumber company in Jay, New York, which is on the east side of the Adirondacks, and they are currently the largest sawmill in the Adirondacks. This I forget. I'm blanking on the name of the. So there's the Caboose, and there's our office up there. So
You
someone
keep
asked
calling it the
before.
office. It's the second floor of the house is the office. Is that?
The whole building is built on a berm, and there's a tunnel that led from the train tracks to the basement where they would store all of their supplies. But then the inside is just filled with family members right now, and it's raining, so I don't want to go up there.
Oh, are
I
you out
know
in the rain now? I'm sorry, we're
it's slightly raining. It's not a monsoon, but yeah.
There are some cool details in your house, though. You were showing me the windows that were where like people would come up to get paid are still like there. It's still you can still see that it was an office.
Yes, there's stand-up desks and glass panels that slide down like a ticket booth, really. So people would come, um, make their lumber order, and they could actually. This whole area was the lumber yard, so they could. I mean, none of these trees were here. These are all they've all grown in the
Oh,
60 years.
interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, usually around a lumber mill, at least on the East Coast, in some cases on the West Coast, um, people would or loggers would leave a single the tallest tree that was near the mill. They would leave it. They wouldn't cut it, and it's kind of some kind of superstition. So they would leave the tall single tree left. It would be the last thing logged.
That's really cool. Does anyone have any questions for Andy? I don't know about anybody else, but boy, it's been a long week for me, and my brain is definitely a little fuzzy. So yeah, if people
But
have
it's a holiday
questions,
weekend.
yeah, if people have questions, awesome. If people, if not, let Andy get back to relaxing without technology.
Yeah. Here was the lumber mill. So it was a double bandsaw built in 1913. And then here you can see the spur that they built out over the water. And these tracks were tilted so they could push logs into the mill pond. And the other side was long storage. Not Nothing is left of this. I have a small section of the bandsaw blade, but yeah, otherwise nothing really left.
So are any of the tracks still left?
There's there's one track in the woods. There's a lot of ties left. A lot of if you just walk in the woods, you can find spikes, fish plates. Um, there's a little short piece of track that I've found in the woods, but they're talking about turning the right of way into a bicycle path, um, and and I've ridden it on a mountain bike. Um, it takes a long time, and
Yes.
while doing that, I scared a moose, and the moose really scared me. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
That's a
actually
real
love.
popular thing to take railroad right-of-ways and turn them into bike paths.
yes,
I know through Illinois and Iowa, there's the prairie path that is real popular.
Here in New York City, there's basically a path that you can ride from here up to the Croton Reservoir as well. That was um, an
the
old railroad
Putnam
track
branch
as
of
well.
the New York Central.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. You know, I've done the ride further up, not necessarily like from right out of the city, but it's pretty cool to like be able to ride from here up to like Cold Spring or whatever, and then take the train back into the city and sort of have the connection of the different worlds. And what I realized when you just showed that last picture too is the amount of wood that they would have needed to build the platforms to put the rails on for them to be able to move the wood to do the milling to be able to build the platforms to put the rails on like that. Like when you set up a mill, it must take years just to get it like initially set up before they can even make any wood to sell.
Yeah,
um,
I think they had a second mill, so they were probably using
okay.
the first mill to make that shoe fly for the second mill. Um,
Right.
I don't I don't know if they ever got the second bandsaw working. Every time
Oh,
every
okay.
photo I've seen, they just have one. It's like a barn door with a like a chain going, like a ramped chain going up to it, and it only goes into one door, not the other door. So I don't know if they ever got the second blade actually running. I think it was a bit overbuilt. It didn't
Yeah, yeah.
run for very long. I think they logged it out before they could use it all. When you were talking about all the infrastructure that they have to build, they had to dig out all of these hills to put the tracks down in the first place using that steam shovel. And whenever I've, I think about making bricks. To make a brick kiln, you have to have this. You have to already have the number of bricks that you want to make the outside of the kiln. So you have to borrow those bricks from somebody else.
Yeah. Oh, that's so yeah.
In the
Yeah,
rail part of the mill, you'd have, of course, rail service out for the lumber, but you'd have all these different like branches go out in different directions to the logging camps themselves where the trees were actually being cut.
Right, right. And I mean, this caboose was used as kind of like a bus to get all of those loggers out there, out those 100 miles to the end of the line. So
Yeah, what
you
was
ride out in these little cabooses, and if someone got hurt out there, they had to bring them back. So the caboose would actually function as an ambulance too.
so what would be the radius of logging supply for a mill? Anybody know? I don't.
Well, they did use other means to get the logs to the track. They would use horses.
Right.
Um, Most of the time, they would move the logs to the track from further up the hill. Usually, they would use other horses. They made kind of greased um log flumes, um, so they had that, and then they also used these vehicles, half track vehicles. In this For this particular company, half track vehicles called Lynn tractors, and it had a tank tread in the back, and in the front they had in the summer months they would have wheels, and in the winter months they would have skis. So they had
Okay.
these
Kind of like an M3 World War II half track.
right, right, and then they actually, from my research, this particular company used after World War One, they used a French tank. They had a Renault tank that they
Oh,
took the turret off, and they were using that to pull logs to the tracks.
wow. And
So,
I just realized too, you've been talking the whole time that it's a logging pond. And I'm thinking back to like when I think of logging, I think of like the big river coming down the mountain, and they would cut the logs at the top of the mountain, stick them in the river, and then the mill was at the bottom of the river. But this is like a completely different type of operation than that. They're not using the water as much for transportation. They're using the rail and the horses and stuff to transport the logs more than the water.
right, right.
Yeah, log piles
This
are more
particular
efficient.
area is, the town is on the edge of the watershed. So one side of town goes to the St. Lawrence River eventually. The other side um, goes towards the Hudson River. So this is
Mm-hmm.
right. There's two lakes in town. One goes one way and one goes the other way.
Kind of
Um,
like the Eastern Continental Divide.
right, but it's the town itself is only 2 blocks long, um, and the elevation change is not very high. Um,
Right, right.
that division.
So we've been talking about all the wood, but there was a lot of rail track at some point. Was there a steel mill like nearby, or did they have to basically train all of the steel in just to then build the tracks to
Yeah, they had to bring in everything metal and everything. There are actually, uh, 2 towns over. There is a very large iron deposit. The iron deposit is so large that they've never been able to use it all up. It's like a big iron deposit. When they were first exploring the area, the surveyors' compasses would just be going crazy because the amount of iron in the ground. So it was very hard to survey the area when
yeah,
they were doing it.
yeah.
So it's this large open pit mine. It's a large one for the East Coast, but they weren't they weren't milling that, or they weren't turning that into metal. They weren't refining it there. They did have to ship it out and then bring it back if they were using that particular metal.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've lived in the Northeast pretty much all my life, I guess, for the most part, and but always in more major cities. So you don't realize, like, you go to Home Depot or you go to the lumber yard to go get a piece of wood, and you don't realize that to get a piece of wood, you need water, you need metal, you need, all this other infrastructure. Like you think, oh, you just need a tree. Like you just chop down a tree and you get a piece of 2x4 out of it. Um, so it's really kind of cool to see all the stuff involved. And I don't do you have any pictures in that book that you could show just how sort of you showed me one picture at one time that showed just how elevated and complicated all the rail stuff
Let's see.
actually was around the mill. Because that was, I mean, we saw it in that overhead view, but it's just
Yeah.
like, I
Um,
mean,
Yeah,
let's see.
nowadays you can get a portable mill on a trailer. It's a
yeah.
bandsaw on a trailer,
I mean,
and
on
they
YouTube,
get
I
to the.
see all these people that mill their own wood in their backyards. It's like,
I have a friend
Well,
in Tennessee that does
once you mill that wood, you have to let it dry, because it's going to warp. Like using green lumber is good for some things, but not if you want to build a structure that's not going to twist itself out of shape. Like, currently, when you go to Home Depot, since the lumber prices were so high,
yeah,
you look at the 2x4s, and the 2x4 looks like a pretzel, or it's twisted like
yeah,
90 degrees from one end of an 8-foot board to the other. It's off so much because the mills are rushing to get it dried out in time. They do use kilns to heat it up, but I'm sorry, Heath, I can't find
It's
that
okay.
particular image.
No, it's all good.
This is a book that I was using, Logging Railroads of the Adirondacks, Bill Gove. And then
Back 30, 40 years ago, kiln dried lumber was the common thing.
Rails in the Northwoods, another one.
Isn't that still what they do with wood? It's mostly kiln dried. They don't let it dry naturally, do they, for the big mills?
It
I don't
doesn't
know.
they don't have the time to do it.
Wow. Yeah, I guess that makes sense then too, right? With plywood, because you have to basically mill the lumber, wait for the lumber to dry, and then turn it into plywood. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean with a plywood, they have a machine that turns the wood and another like a blade across when they turn it, and it just turns it into a veneer. It's like a spiral cut. It's like a honey baked ham or something, and then they just layer
honey
those
baked ham,
veneers cross grain.
right?
Because
So,
that helps control some of the warping.
Right.
well, I don't know about anybody else, but I learned more about logging now than I ever thought. I mean, like I think I thought I knew about logging. Like I thought I sort of envisioned what it was, but or at least I guess too this type of logging is very different because it wasn't really like I think of the logging with the narrow gauge railroads going up into the mountains, and this
Right.
wasn't really that. This was a whole different type of logging and different type of use of railroad. Was it narrow gauge, the logging
It was
stuff?
This was standard gauge, and I mean they interchanged cars with the New York Central. They had two railroads. They had a common carrier, and then they had the actual logging. They call it the North Tram. But the common carrier was a legal railroad that would allow interchange of cars with other railroads, so they could supply the town and they could supply the mill. Um,
Yeah.
so they could bring New York Central cars in here, load up the wood from here, and then take them all over the country from here.
Um, we have some people that are just coming in, later that weren't here at the beginning. What kind of happens with this stream a little bit is we get a morning crew, and then around this time we get the lunch rush for people that are getting the lunch break. Would you mind just sort of doing another little tour of
Sure.
the inside and then outside of the caboose?
Yeah. Well, this is my caboose. It's a scale model, 1-to-1 scale, replica of a caboose that was built around 1880. And I bought these. I'm cheating a little bit. I'm using electricity. They're not gas. W.T. Kirkman in California, kind of east of San Diego. They make a lot of replica lanterns. So these are caboose bunker lanterns, similar to what they would have had in this caboose. And then I've got a cupola area. Actually, someone was asking before if I had any items that I found in the woods. This is a door hanger from a wooden boxcar. And then stairway up to the cupola. You can look out. Windows up here. The logs I had. And then here is the original that I'm copying. It was probably built as a bobber caboose with just two wheels, or two axles. But then when it came up here, they put four regular trucks on it. And it's actually, the Caboose is built on the supply track for the lumber company.
Container Man's asking if you have to live in it when the wife kicks you out.
Yeah, it's my dog house. So it
Oh, I'm
is
sorry,
really
it's raining
now.
out there. I'm sorry.
So yeah, there's the side of it. It's a short caboose. It's only the body of the caboose is only 16 feet long. Um, I think it is a little bit longer than it is tall, but not very much. Um, the globe lanterns, they should both be, the marker lights should both be red, but um, for some reason when I got it, it came with it one green one, and I got it 10 years ago and I haven't changed it. So shh, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, for people that don't know, you've been working on this for 15 years.
15 years, yes.
Yeah, and it's you were saying it's a scale model, a 1-to-1 scale model. You took an O scale version
yeah,
of this and took the drawings from an O scale version and scaled it up to 1-to-1 scale, and then have been building it for years.
yeah.
So
So
yeah.
this little kit, yeah, just a box of sticks really. But I took the drawings and blew them all up full size. And then I have a neighbor who has a sawmill on a trailer. It just kind of slides up and down the board, and he milled all of the structural lumber for me. I still have a couple, like the end beams are sitting here on the ground. Eventually, I'll have them on the ends, and then these are handrails. Handrails from a New York Central heavyweight commuter car that was being scrapped in the woods. So I asked the owner if I could have the handrails, and he said yes. So that will be the only real, as of yet, the only real railroad used piece in the caboose.
I don't know if Nisi's asking you this or somebody else, but she says, have you ever had issues with bats?
Not with bats. One year I had an issue with a woodpecker who really liked the sound that his beak made on a particular board, and so I had to fix that. That was fun. Used some Bondo to fix the hole.
Thought you were talking about fixing the bird.
Oh, I couldn't find the bird. The bird's too fast.
Politically
Oh,
correct answer.
that's too incredible. Yeah, and even if he did, Steve, he wouldn't admit it on the stream. Come on.
I would.
Woodpecker stew? Woodpecker stew?
Yeah.
I don't know how much meat there would be in a woodpecker stew.
No, not much. I don't think.
Raccoons, bears, mountain lions, bobcats. Roy, you missed our conversation about the deer and the moose.
Yeah, well,
You probably
deer,
do have
moose,
mountain lions up there. I
black
would
bears.
Yeah.
I think a moose is the biggest because that's scary. One time I was working here and I heard someone had some hunting dogs that they had let out, and I heard all this barking, and it was coming closer and closer, and I turned around the corner from the caboose, and a deer jumped right at me, and he looked like he changed angle in the air. He would have hit me right in the chest with his hooves, but he dodged a bullet.
Wow,
That was the most exciting day of working on the caboose.
Sounds like it's safer to come back to the city.
Yeah, then you just have to worry about buses and crossing the
But
street.
but they don't change directions midair usually. So
No.
you're usually
If it looks like he's going to hit you, he's going to hit you.
well, Andy. I think some of the questions are getting a little off track in the chat, so I don't see if anyone has any on-topic questions for Andy in the chat. We've got about 5 more minutes, but while we're just waiting to see if anybody has any last-minute questions, do you just want to take a second and thank all the people that support the channel as well as the channel sponsors? So I just saw that Roy had a. Is it Roy? No, Flying Crow had a question. He asked, "Is it a transfer caboose body?"
No, it's a this would be considered a bobber caboose.
Yeah,
And
What
I don't.
do you know the
I-
difference between the two? I guess I don't know the difference.
Well, a transfer caboose body would not have a cupola.
Ah,
A transfer caboose was used to move cars from one railroad yard to another, is my understanding of a transfer caboose. Yeah, this one I made all myself. It's not a. It's the only parts on it that are railroad used would be the handrails that I'm adding today.
so no wheels yet, but the wheels
No
are
wheels.
coming.
No wheels. I don't have a.
Not yet.
Yeah. And I'll have to put some track down before I put the wheels on. So.
Yeah, sure. So, although I did see a video recently of somebody running, I think it was their O-scale locomotives, or maybe it was the G-scale locomotive, just across the concrete floor.
Oh, it was a dead rail.
It was a dead rail, yeah, model. So, yeah, awesome. Andy, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And,
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was
fun
great.
to
I'm so glad we were able to make it work, and I'm glad that the internet worked out for us as well. This has been,
Yeah, it's been a great picture, especially considering you're out kind of in the boonies.
Yeah. It's all unlimited data on my cell phone.
It's amazing the way we're able to connect these days just through our smartphone devices. And
Yeah.
But any final last parting thoughts?
Thanks so much.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks, Andy.
Oh, John just saying goodbye, but awesome. Yeah. Please check out. There's a lot of other live streams going on today. A lot of other, people in the community. A lot of other things going on. So, please support the community and support all of the people out there. And I'll catch everyone on the next stream.
Thanks so
Bye,
much.
buddy.
Bye-bye.
It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. It's all